What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Join me here today to answer the question of can the Lions make a Super Bowl run, or was last year their best shot? Help me answer that question here today is my guy, my right-hand man over at the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, how you doing on this nice day outside? And also, talk about these Detroit Lions. Was last year, was that their peak, or do you think they can go a little bit further this year? What's your thoughts, my friend? How's it going?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. This is kind of like for me the Houston Texans of the NFC, right?
Mm,
A team that a couple of years ago we're mentioning them. We're not even in the conversations. A
no.
couple of years later, now we're in the conversations, right? Now we've already talked about how good we expect this Texans team again to be, and how we expect also their counterpart on the opposite side of the league in the Detroit Lions to do their part. Jared Goff is Jared Goff, man. He's going to come out and continue to give you Jared Goff production. That's not going to change one bit, especially under Dan Campbell. I don't think he's going to let that happen. Secondly, you look down the depth chart, for crying out loud, you got Montgomery and you got Gibbs. Now, this is Gibbs' sophomore season. He showed some really good flashes in his rookie campaign, but they never really gave him the full Monty of it. They always had Jordan Montgomery, David Montgomery getting the majority of the goal line, and then Jameer just kind of giving you some in between the meat, right? So I would like to see if they can get Jameer more involved around the goal line, or if anything, get him more involved in just rushing attempts if you're going to take away his touchdown totals. Either way, they have a really good problem over there with that 1-2 punch out of Detroit and their backfield. You look further down. I mean, they're not doing too bad on the wide receiver front.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they have a guy named St. Brown. We know what that guy's capable of doing. Jennison Williams is a little bit more kind of, he's not bad. 119-15. So, or see, I pulled up St. Brown's numbers. I was wanting to pull up Williams' numbers. Williams did a modest 24 catches at 354. I think that number gets ramped up. Yeah, that's going to get ramped up a lot. So I expect to see more out of Williams. I think he's going to be the X factor for this offense in terms of how far it can go, because if he doesn't do very well, then they're just going to double team Laporta. They're going to double team up on St. Brown, and then you're going to call it a day. So Williams really does need to have a good season in order for the rest of these guys to take off. You got Khalif Raymond, another guy, 35, 489. So these are a couple of journeyman guys that they've been using around St. Brown and Laporta. I think obviously Laporta's probably going to be your second biggest guy there. It's still going to be St. Brown's team.
Yep.
And then you're going to have a couple of complementary role players as well on that offense. I think the biggest thing for this team is that offensive line. Way back when they first drafted Penny Sewell on this offensive line rebound. And then, of course, it's gotten better since then. You look on the opposite side of the defense, Aiden Hutchinson, man, what a great player over there as well. He had a great, fantastic season last year. I expect to see more out of him this year. Then you look at McNeil, Rader, Davenport, Jack Campbell at the weak side linebacker spot. I mean, they have a lot of good people out there, Kirby, Brian, Branch, and so forth. So I think the defense is going to look good. It's just like they did last year. The offense is good. All they did was add to this team. They certainly didn't take anything away from it. So I really expect to see a lot more out of second-year runner Jahmyr Gibbs, and I really like to see a lot more out of this receiving core.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this team, last year was obviously a magical season. First time they had got to the playoffs in forever. First time they had won a game in forever plus. So it was just a great season all around, man, if you were a Lions fan, which, God, when was the last time they were able to say that? But it's time. It's now time, Jay. We can park that car in the garage and, we'll let it sit and keep it nice and shiny. And we'll look back at it in 20 years and say, man, what a season that was. But it's time to start prepping, man. It's time for the new cars to roll out. It's time for the 2024 season here coming up in just a little bit. And talking about these Lions, you mentioned it. Obviously, they're led by their leader on offense in Jared Goff, a guy who for a while, everyone in LA was kind of nitpicking at him and not sure if he was going to be the guy, if he was a bust or whatnot. And then we all know, and I mentioned it in last week's show, that trade that they had with the Rams and Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, and how it worked out well for both teams. Obviously, it gave the Rams a Super Bowl ring, and it helped build the Lions to the team they are today. Jared Goff has been one of the best quarterbacks in football. I mean, with how well he's played, and especially last season, if he can duplicate what he did last year, the Lions do have a, I think, legitimate shot at getting to a Super Bowl. You mentioned the big thing for you, and I agree, is going to be the running back room and how well can Jahmyr Gibbs do in his second year. We all know last year we saw him and we said, all right, this young guy's got something here. 15 games, had a heavy workload of 180 plus carries for close to 1,000 yards. And like you mentioned, that wasn't primarily as the first down back. He was more so of a split option, and he's able to put up that kind of number. So, like you said, just imagine what he can do now that he is going to be that RB number one, and just the production he can do. Like I said, 10 touchdowns on the ground. And like I said, if he needs to get it done in the air, he can also do that. Got 316 yards as a receiver as well. So he's a dual threat in my eyes. He's not the elite of the elites, but like I said, he's only been in the league for 1 year. He's already putting up good numbers like that. So that is scary for opposing defenses. Like you said, I think that that's his team, and I think the rest of this unit is going to fall in line with him. You mentioned David Montgomery, who last year had a really good season also, Jay. I mean, he looked great last year for his first year in Detroit. 1,000 yards for him, 13 touchdowns on the ground. And I think that that's still one of the best running back duos in the NFC, especially in the North, but just the NFC in general. Then you said the receiving core, I'm still not 100% sold on that being top of the line. I still think there is some places that they can get stronger at. I don't believe that's the tops in football. They can still do some work there. But obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown is proving to be a breakout star in this league, dare I say, with how well he did last year. You mentioned Khalif Raymond. They've got some guys on there who are solid players, Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. And then you've got some younger guys who are going to hopefully help out, and Jalen Calhoun, who they drafted out of Duke this past season. So we'll see what they can do with the rest of that unit. Also, Jamison Williams, a guy who didn't play in a whole lot of games last year, played in just a handful, but they're still he played in 12 games last year, still has not yet to play a full season. So we'll see if his numbers can ramp up tenfold, right? Because, I mean, this is a first-round pick in 22. Obviously, he only played in 6 games in his first year due to some off-the-field issues. Then this past year, he was feeling, he missed a handful of games. I think now's the time for him, Jay. This is his third year of a rookie deal. So I think he knows in himself, like, hey, man, I've got to do something here if I want to see that second contract with this team, with this unit.
Right.
Sam McCord.
And I'll be honest with you, this is the division, Logan, where even every game really does matter. All your divisional games matter. It's such a tight race, or it's going to be such a tight race between them, Green Bay, and Minnesota. I think it actually makes some noise over there, depending on that quarterback situation. I mean, you're talking about 3 teams that can really wreak havoc in a division. So this is one of those divisions where everything matters and everything's going to not get handed to you.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I think that with this Lions team, I think that they've got a ton of talent. And when you look at their division rivals in the North, Green Bay is a solid team. That's going to be tough this year. I think Green Bay, we talked about them. I think that they've got a good unit. Minnesota, they took a step back. There's no question about that. I don't think they're going to be a real threat. And Chicago, they just drafted the number 1 overall pick. So I am not expecting high hopes from them this season. So when I look at these Lions, do I think that this is their best year to go in there and do so? I say yes, because like you said, they have added some pieces. They haven't added a whole lot when you look at their offseason moves. They've added a couple here and there. But I think that this unit, especially the offense, you brought up the defense and whatnot, and how they've got a really strong core over there. But I think the offense continues its good run from last year, and I think Jay, that could potentially propel them to make a run at the Super Bowl. We saw how well it did for them last year, and I think that'll continue over into 2024. So, Detroit Lions fans, if you might want to say potentially in the Super Bowl remains to be seen, but I still think, Jay, I don't think that last year was their best shot. I think it could be this year. And we'll see, man. We'll see. But I will say it's just odd, especially for me, because like I said, I'm only 26, going to be 27. The bulk of my life, this team has not been good at all. And now just the fact that me and you are on here talking about this unit potentially going to the Super Bowl, it's crazy. It's crazy to see, much like your Houston Astros, who for the longest time were down in the dumps, much like these Lions. But hey, man, that's what happens when you get a good coach, when you get a good GM who can draft you some good players like the Lions have had, who can wheel and deal in free agency like these Lions have. And and also, like I said, the coach more so than others. You guys had Dusty Baker, and now the Lions, they found their bread and butter. And I think that Dan Campbell, a guy who's, if he continues to run he's on, he's going to be getting a nice statue out front when all is said and done out there in Detroit. So it's nice to see and nice to talk about this team, man, in a positive light for once, and revel in their success. So I think that overall, man, I think these Lions are still dangerous. They're going to bite some kneecaps off this year. And who knows, man? Who knows? They could get to the Super Bowl come 2024. It remains to be seen, man. But I'm excited to see how this team's going to unfold, how the league's going to look here once the season kicks off in just a short amount of time. Jay, I appreciate you, my brother, coming on the show talking about these Lions. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Guys, drop a comment on Facebook and YouTube. Will the Lions make the Super Bowl this year, or was last year, was that their run? Did they just miss out on it? Want to hear from you in the comments. Once again, check us out over there, and also go download our podcast on all major podcast streaming platforms. Until next time, we'll see you again on another